Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the fourth Amplify Your Research session. This is the fourth of 5 sessions that we are doing this year on ways that you can use AMP to increase your success when using AMP to research the topics that you're interested in. Next month is the final session for this year. And that one will be with Ryan on maps on the Arizona Memory Project. And as Ryan mentioned, there will be a survey that we would love to have you fill out. We will be looking to introduce new topics next year. Certainly we will talk about newspapers next year, but we would love to hear what you guys want to learn more about on the Arizona Memory Project. So we would love your feedback on that. So today I'm going to talk about the city directories that we have on the Arizona Memory Project. Most of you are probably familiar with what city directories are and the benefit that they have for lots of different research. But just to give an overview, city directories are used typically for genealogy research or business research. They provide a wealth of information about a business name, a business owner, personal information such as a spouse's name, a personal address, a phone number, whether a person owned or rented their home, and maybe even what their job or their career was. Sometimes city directories may even include information as to whether or not they were a widow or their military information, their service information. So the city directories that we have on the Arizona Memory Project come from the collections that the state of Arizona Research Library has, as well as a couple of our Arizona Memory Project partners. I do want to point out that the materials that come from the state of Arizona Research Library, not all of the material that we have on our shelves has been digitized. So if you're looking on the Arizona Memory Project and you don't find what you're looking for, definitely reach out to us because it could be something we haven't digitized yet for a multitude of reasons. So definitely reach out to us if that's the case. So the first thing you might want to do when you are researching a city directory or you want to look for a city directory is just jump right to searching for somebody's name. And if that's the case, I want to give you a couple different scenarios. This search box right here on the front page seems like the obvious place to start, but I'm going to dissuade you from using this search box. This particular search box is extremely generic. This would be like typing your, grandfather's name into Google and putting Bill Smith in here and hoping you find your grandfather. It's very, very generic. You are going to get every instance of Bill and every instance of Smith that exists on the Arizona Memory Project. So it's not going to be very helpful. So I would skip starting on this page really for everything, but definitely if you're searching for names. I would start in the upper left-hand corner in this search tool up here. And that's going to take us to kind of an advanced search area. And this is where you can search more advanced, get some more options to start with. So we're going to search for Frank Luke as an example. So we're going to start by searching his first name and last name. And then we can actually limit the item types. So we only want to search for city directories. We don't want to look for his name in photographs or in documents. So I'm going to uncheck everything and only look in the city directories. And if we wanted to, we could say, is his name in the title? Obviously, his name's not going to be in the city directory title. Excuse me. If his name was in the metadata fields, which it won't be for city directories, but if we knew a date range, like if we wanted to find Frank Luke in a city directory from the 1910s, then we could put the date range in here and narrow it down. And if we wanted to look for an exact phrase match, or if we wanted to see what we got with Frank Luke as is and get a little broader with this search, then we could leave it as all keywords. But I'm going to select exact phrase match and see what we get. So this might be where you start. Looking for somebody's name. You could also do this for a business. If there's a business that you're looking for in a city directory, and then you will land on this results page. And a couple things I want to point out. You will see over here, you might get multiple pages of results. And in this instance, we have 4 pages of results. So you might need to scroll over if there's a certain year that you're looking for. The results that show up are by relevance. So if you want to look in for city directories in date order, the year is always at the beginning of the title. So you can change the order to title A to Z, and that will put the years in numerical order. So that might be easier for you to locate a specific year if you're looking for a specific year. And then if you need the additional years, you can again push the button down here to get to page 3 or 4, whatever year you might be looking for. And in this case, let's jump to the 1916 Phoenix City directory. And while it's loading, we can see that it's actually highlighting for us where it found Frank Luke in the OCR. And we can also see up here that there's 1 of 2 matches, and it actually highlighted the first one for us. So in the city directory, we can see that it highlighted Frank Luke is one of the supervisors of the county government, which we know that Frank Luke Jr.'s father, so Frank Luke Sr., was a Maricopa County supervisor. So if we wanted to see where the second match was, we just push these arrows, and now we find the second instance of his name being highlighted. And it kind of gives us the same information. He's part of the County Board of Supervisors. In fact, he was the chairman. But what we didn't get was his address, which is usually what we're looking for in a city directory. And I just wanted to point that out because this is an instance where we might need to change the order of what we're looking for. In this case, we might want to switch Luke and then put Frank next. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But what I want to do first is go back to the home page and point out that on the home page, we actually have a collection of city directories. So if you don't want to try to search for a name in this search box, because maybe the name is very generic, like a Bill Smith or a John Smith or an Elizabeth Smith or something that's very generic, and you feel like you might get too many false positives, then you could jump to our city directories collection, and it's always here on the home page. And what this collection is kind of an amalgamation of all of the city directories that we have on AMP, including our own, which is this collection titled The Places We Lived, City Directories of Arizona. That is the largest collection of city directories on AMP. Those are the ones that come from the State of Arizona Research Library. The other collections down here come from our partners. So we have a collection from the Winslow Public Library, the Sun City Historical Society, the Flagstaff Public Library, and the Historical Society. And then these single city directories or other directories also come from our own collection. So these are just kind of one-offs that aren't technically city directories, but certainly provide the same kind of information. Some of these are church directories. So we added those to the same collection. So you could look at those as well. So from this collection, you can either jump to a specific collection to look more specifically at an area. So if you were interested in the Winslow directories or maybe Flagstaff or Sun City, you could jump straight into that collection to look at the years that are available. Or you can actually use the collection search box up here. So this is a custom search box specific for this collection, this city directories collection. And you could technically put Frank Luke's name up here or your ancestor's name, but it kind of behaves the same way that that search box on the home page works. It's going to be very generic. So if we were to put Frank Luke's name in this search box, what we will get is every instance of Frank and every instance of Luke in every city directory, which is going to be a lot. So what I would use this search box for instead is if I was looking for a specific, if I just wanted maybe all of the Glendale city directories or all of the Navajo County city directories, I might do that from here and just narrow down the city directory itself and then move on from there. I would not use this to try to find somebody's name unless the name was very unique. Then I might use that for the search that I would perform. So then if we wanted to jump to the biggest city directory collection, which is the places we lived, we can open that collection and we can see that, again, these are in alphabetical, and I say that in quotes, by the year. So the earliest city directory that we have is from 1881. And then you can see this green arrow button here, which means there are more city directories. So if we click that and the internet slows down and opens to another page, and you can see that there are 10 additional pages of city directories. And I think the most current one we have is 1963, I think is the most current city directory that we have. And you can see that we have 231 city directories in this collection. So if you wanted to browse the city directories, I would suggest that that would be the easiest way. If you knew the town that your ancestor lived in, you might want to start by looking this way instead of searching by a name. So you can use the little caret that's sticking out here. And if you click on that, then you get a drop down for city or town, county, or state. We do actually have some city directories that include other states. Sometimes they combine different states within some city directories. You click the city or town drop down and you can see all of the different cities are listed here. And if you click show more in alphabetical order, you can see all of these different cities here. And the number corresponds with the number of city directories that have that town in the city directory. So if we scroll back up and we clicked on Ajo, for example, it will open up the one city directory that includes Ajo in the city directory. And you can see it's the Ajo Gila Bend city directory. So this is a good way to narrow down the city that you want and see if the year that you want exists for that city directory on the memory project. So now I want to show you how to search within a city directory. So if we have found the city directory that we want, we know that our ancestor lived in that specific town in that specific year, then I'll show you how to search within the city directory itself. So I've already opened up this 1961 Phoenix city directory. And I did that to save some time because this one is a chunker. It's almost 2,000 pages. Some of the city directories, once we get into like the 1950s, can be really big. So have a little bit of patience when it comes to opening these city directories. They might take a moment to open. But to search within the text, you can click on the magnifying glass here. And I've already typed in a search term, which is Blakely oil. And if you have been around Arizona long enough, you may be familiar with Blakely oil. Blakely oil was a series of gas stations in the 40s through the 60s that one of the things they provided was a giveaway for Blakely glass, which is now an antique, and people love searching for Blakely glass all over the antique shops around Arizona. So if I wanted to locate the Blakely oil stations, I would search for Blakely oil. And I have 26 matches. You can see those here. And to highlight those, I'm going to click my arrow and it's going to highlight each instance with the address and additional information of these hits that it found in the OCR. So we can continue to click, and there's a specific one that I want to get to show you guys. And it's this one specifically. So Blakely Oil was actually started by Monroe Blakely. So you can see here, he's the president of Blakely Oil. But what I wanted to point out was if I had actually searched for Blakely A. Monroe, you can see that it turned red. So it actually did not find this in the OCR. And I did that to point out that OCR is not infallible. And most of us have probably seen that from time to time, where we find the thing in the document, but it didn't pop up in OCR. And my guess for this specific document is you can see the page is just so slightly curved that it wasn't flat enough for Adobe or whatever the program was that OCR'd this document to tell what this word was. So my suggestion is to search the term or the name in multiple different ways. You could start off by just searching the last name, and that's how we found Blakely Oil, which led us to the president of Blakely Oil, and we found his entry here anyways, including his home address. Even if we had typed his name in, correctly, we would not have found it. He usually went by the name Monroe, so we might have searched Monroe Blakely. We wouldn't have found it. If we had searched Blakely Monroe, we wouldn't have found it. So you might have to search for your ancestor's name or a business name in multiple different ways. The other thing is to consider shortcuts for names, like William is sometimes in city directories as William. There's an example right here. Too much highlighting. There's a William that's just WM. There's what's probably an Alfred as an ALF. There's a Charles that's just a Chaz. So things to consider when you're searching city directories. Women's names were also often abbreviated that way as well. So one of the suggestions then that I have is if you try to do a search and you don't find what you need, you may actually have to scroll. And these big chonker city directories from the 1950s and 60s may require a lot of scrolling. But what that means is you might need to become familiar with the way city directories work. And you can do that by going to the very beginning of the city directories, where they often have pages like this that have abbreviations and can tell you what some of the abbreviations mean. For example, the letter H next to a name often means home or the householder, which usually means they owned the home. The letter R next to a name often meant they reside or room in a home, which means they probably rent a room or rent the home itself. And then there's an example here of proper names that they've abbreviated. So you can see Elizabeth is abbreviated to just ELIZ. And then they also, this particular city directory has an explanation of who's included. So all persons over 18 years of age, the wife's name is shown in parentheses after the husband's. So it gives you a lot of information as to what's included in the city directory, and who might be included and what the different symbols mean. So sometimes starting at the very beginning of a city directory will give you a lot of information as to what is included in the entries for the city directories. And then I don't remember if this particular city directory had it. I think it might have, but the city directories will sometimes also have an instructions, or not instructions, but a description of how the directory is laid out. So it might have a section that talks about the first part of the directory, and I'm scrolling while I'm talking to you guys about this to see. if I can find that, I don't see it. Where it might say the first part of the directory is classified business ads. And then the middle part of the directory is the telephone directory. So if you know the person's phone number, you can look at the directory by in numerical order. And then maybe the third part is by street address. So if you know the address, then you can see who lives in the home at that address. And then maybe the last part of the directory is by last name. So you can look through the directory to see if it gives you that information, how the directory itself is laid out. And then that way, if you know the person's name and you expect that your ancestor is in the directory, you might have to do the scrolling as we would have done to find Monroe Blakely in this particular instance. And then one other thing that I wanted to point out that we also have in the memory project that aren't necessarily city directories, but that I think especially people who are doing genealogy research might appreciate are other types of directories. We have a lot of directories in our state government documents. So agencies would often create directories, especially like boards and commissions, or for example, here's one, the Directory of Arizona Contractors. So this was a directory that was produced by the Registrar of Contractors. And we actually have an entire sub-collection of them. So you can see all the different years that we have. And these were listings, a directory of the different businesses that existed, who owned the business. It had the license name, the license, contractor license number of the business, the phone number, all of that information is included as well. So if your ancestor owned a business and you wanted more information about the business, that is included here as well. One of the easiest ways to find these is, and I did that kind of fast, is I went to this search button up here and I typed directory in the here, I'll just do it again for you guys so you can see. I typed directory and I said, I want that in the title. And then what I didn't do, and I should have, is I should change this to documents. So I want every item on AMP where directory is in the title, but I only want the documents. I don't want everything because we already did city directories, but I want the documents. And so if I search that way, then I will get all the items that aren't city directories that have directory in the title. And so you'll get some other things that probably aren't helpful, like the C directory probably won't be helpful. But if we go back to this directory of contractors and you look in the original format section of the metadata, if you click there, then that will take you to all of the items on AMP that have been tagged as directories. And so some of those city directories are going to pop back up. You can see here there's a Arizona dental directory. So this is a list of dentists in 1953 that were allowed to practice dentistry here in Arizona. So lots of different directories that you can come across. We even have some directories on AMP from Arizona State University. So yeah, here they are. So if you were a student at ASU in the 1970s or 80s, there's information here about what your phone number was. I think it might include the dorm that you were in. So yeah, lots of other types of directories other than city directories that exist on AMP as well. But I just wanted to point those out because if you're doing genealogy research, those may give you a lot of other information also. And then if you're still looking for something that you hope to find and you're not finding it on AMP, I just wanted to point out that you can always contact us by clicking this button up here. That will reach Ryan and myself via email. And if we can't help you via email, we'll shoot it over to the rest of the staff and someone will help you out with your question. We also have a link to our online catalog. So you can search our catalog for items there, including city directories that haven't been digitized yet. And then the State Archives public catalog is also here. So if you want to see if the archives has something, their link to their catalog is here as well. So you can reach us in a couple different ways that way. And then again, just a reminder, the next session for our Amplify Your Research is in about a month, and that is going to be on the maps. That concludes my session today on city directories, and if anybody has any questions, I would love to take those. Let's see what's in the chat here. I don't see any questions so far, but if anybody has any questions, definitely let me know. Otherwise, you guys know where to reach us. The contact information is on the slides. As Ryan mentioned, this is being recorded, and usually we get these recordings posted by the end of the day. So Ryan has posted the links to where the recordings will be. So you can certainly revisit this, because I know I talk kind of fast. Revisit this whenever you want to revisit it. And we would love to hear some feedback about some additional sessions you guys would like to hear about after the map session next September. So thank you guys for attending, and we look forward to seeing you next month.